I just want to touch on yesterday's interview because we got a couple of people, a lot of people enjoyed it. One person wrote in and was like, you realize you're talking to a crazy person. And
yeah.
And my response is yes. And the idea that, like, why would you do this? Well, there's a simple reason why I would do it. I do.
It's tons of fun.
Well, no, it's not just that it's tons of fun. It is tons of fun. And I think people who listen to the program for an extended period of time, particularly who listen to the fun half, know that I love to debate people on this stuff. But the reason why I do it fundamentally, and the reason why I've always done it on every radio program I've ever had, and I have welcomed conservative callers. I've gone beyond welcoming conservative callers. And that is because I am not, it is not because I think that I can convince the person I am talking to and somehow convert them. It is to display for the rest of us, and even those people who don't necessarily agree with what I'm saying, but don't necessarily agree with what the other person is saying, the ridiculousness of this other position. And so I got no problem letting Walter Block talk on this program, giving him the vast majority of time, allowing him to take his long explanations of things. And even, and people were like, well, why didn't you question him on his premise that there was only 2 million Native Americans? Because it doesn't matter. Right. If there was 100 million Native Americans when, or 2,000, his whole formula is a joke. I mean, with all due respect, it's a joke. It's a joke. The idea that we would resolve every potential question of whose ownership of property is a function of a multiple set of courts that will behave in a way that he anticipates they're going to behave. And that ultimately their authority simply gets resolved by who has enough money to buy as much guns as they can and back up those courts. And people made the point yesterday, like, my God, that's the utopia that the libertarians are promising us? But then, or the idea that somehow property is established by what the distance between planted ears of corn was in France, depending, of course, which side of the Mississippi you're on. And if you didn't hear the debate yesterday, this is not hyperbole on my part. This is what he based it on. I'm not reaching out of the air to bring in the most absurd examples. No, this is what it's based on. And you don't need to know any more about the libertarian philosophy as to how it ends up being either a justification for racism or an engine for it. Because if you determine what is the true, most basic, fundamental building block as to the validity of someone owning property, and it is based upon not what Native Americans did in this country or the people who are here, but no, rather what white Europeans imported and determined was going to justify property. I mean, it was a way to disenfranchise. It was either a way to disenfranchise and invalidate and delegitimize the existence of the indigenous people, or it was a way to simply justify that had happened. I mean, it is the example that I would give would be, simply to say, like, if someone who is a great baseball hitter said, I am now in charge of, what merit is for athletics. And it is clearly one's capacity to hit a ball about this size with a wooden or metal bat. And everything else is secondary. We need a fundamental building block to say, what is a great athlete? And so this would be the first thing. So if you can't do that, you're not a great athlete. Oh, coincidentally, it turns out I'm really good at it.
Ah, the great
right.
athlete example. Very good. That's a reductio ad absurdum reductaris.
That's right.
Not as good as the age of consent example, but...
But I mean, that is... And I wanted to go in different... I wanted to go in some different directions with the professor. We ran out of time. I didn't realize that I had said an hour. I probably had. I don't, sometimes you cover yourself in that way because you're not sure where this is going to go.
Sam, my medication is going to be wearing off shortly, and I think I've done a very good job of remaining sort of awkwardly over-civil for this conversation. But if you keep me on for another 5 minutes, I may just say, shut up! Leave me alone! The black people and the acorns, and I'm tired of it. I just want my own private court system. Is that too much to freaking ask for?
I was cheering in my seat, though, when he did say shut up. He didn't say it to you, but when you brought up how it was feudalism, and he went, but the king could just tell them to shut up! And I was like, yes! Yes!
But I mean, that's the thing is that, and he's saying, well, I don't know if it's really feudalism, but it really is.
It's not really feudalism. It's more of a less efficient Mad Max world. Are you familiar with that film, Sam?
In Mad Max, nobody had their own, they had their own courts, but they didn't they wore robes, but there was a shortage of gasoline and... So clearly, these are different examples.
No, it's the best as he literally said. It's not feudalism, it's Hobbesian, which is shorthand for like everything you don't really want. Like that was coined in the sense of we need these really strict and structured institutions so as to not live in that state. Not like, well, really, it's less of a feudalism and more of a man against man wild dystopia where children are ripped apart on the street.
Generally, I don't like to go down those paths with libertarians because all you do is you keep digging and digging, and the hole, it gets smaller. But it almost is impossible to get to the bottom of the hole because at the bottom of the hole, you get, we're going to determine the legitimacy of property based upon some mores that we established in France. That's the way, of course, is like, that's what you get at the bottom. Like, this is, it's like saying, it's almost like trying to argue what was at the very beginning existence. I mean, there are theories, right? The Big Bang, but okay, we don't have to explain what happened before the Big Bang because that took place in France. And so we just imported it. And
if you're not white, then tough coconut shells, or in this case, tough acorn shells. Excuse me.
Sam, I got your wallet.
Right.
You want it back? I'll see you at your court.
I'll see you in 15 to 55 courts.
Yeah. Would you like to do my court or your court next week?
At the very least, we know there's Court A, his court, Court B, my court, Court C.
I'm pretty sure your court was Court F.
That adjudicates between those two courts. I don't know if anybody else has courts. It depends.
We're the anti-bureaucracy people. We want 75 courts to resolve a stolen wallet. What I also, like I said to you, too, it also just seems to me it's sort of like debating astronomy with a Scientologist. Like, it's like, okay, like, I guess, yes, in this world where aliens blew up a bunch of, asteroids before the Big Bang, I guess, yes, if I accept that premise, everything else you're saying makes...
But I mean, that's the point, though, is that they do not admit there's a fundamental premise. Which is, in this instance, when it comes to property, it's that, look, we didn't know where to start, so we just chose the one that would ensure that we ended up with the property.